LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation with Sheila Fogarty.
Hello there, good afternoon to you for just joining me here at LBC. The sort of depth and breadth of the impact COVID has had on our conversation nationally is extraordinary, isn't it, really? It's pushed so much else to one side, not least the massive question of the Brexit deal that the government will or won't get in their talks with the EU. And the UK and the EU are set to resume those talks on post-Brexit trade later on. Time they're running out to achieve that deal as the end date for the transition period looms large. A senior UK government source said the prospects of a breakthrough were receding and accused Brussels of making new demands over business rules. For its part, a Brussels source said this was not true, with the EU chief negotiator Michel Barnier calling Friday, today, an important day. I have two areas that I want to discuss with you about this. The degree to which Brexit for you is still a dominant political question. It feels to me that after the 2019 general election that Boris Johnson won so decisively, and given what we've been through with the pandemic, it seems to me that whether you want to be in the EU or not, for now, it isn't really a question. I mean, obviously you're allowed to have a view, I want you to have a view, but I want to get a sense of how much it looms large in your thinking or not at the moment. Have you, if you voted to remain, have you decided to set it down and just accept that some form of Brexit will come? And if that form of Brexit is to be a deal of some sort about our trading arrangements post-Brexit, I'm curious to know what you want Labour to do about that. It was interesting to hear David Lammy on his programme, on James's programme just a few moments ago, well, in the last couple of hours, talking about Labour's position on this. I mean, he wasn't prepared to reveal precisely what Labour's position is on this. But if Labour were to vote against any deal that Boris Johnson brings back, or abstain on any deal that Boris Johnson brings back, if indeed he does, where would that leave them politically, I wonder? So in a sense, I'm asking you where you are still politically on Brexit, and where you think it would leave Labour politically if they don't support a deal that's filed. 0345 6060 973, the number to call. You can text 84850 or tweet at LBC. We'll hear from Ben Kentish in a few moments, LBC's Westminster correspondent, particularly about that Labour question, I think. But first, Jill Water joins me, Senior Research Fellow at UK in a Changing Europe. Jill, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, Sheila.
Is the sort of back and forth that we've seen in the last 48 hours theatrics, or is it content?
I think there's probably a bit of content there. What we don't know is how much that's magnified for audience viewing, so a bit of performance art. But I think we do know that this issue of level playing field, how far the UK is prepared to commit to observe what the EU regards as the sort of basics of fair competition, has been one of the biggest stumbling blocks. So it's not surprising that that's where lots of the focus is in this sort of what appears to be the sort of, not quite sure whether it's the sort of final straight or the death throes, but whatever bit of this prolonged process we're now in, it's not a surprise where there are the most problems.
And for people from last year, what level playing field issue, it's about Europe not having a competitor on its doorstep that can just run free in the trade.
That's right. So they've heard lots of noises that Brexit gives us a chance to do things differently. Boris Johnson was saying, that's the whole point of Brexit. Yeah, what's the point of Brexit? If we sort of leave the EU and he'd be bound by a bunch of EU rules, and even worse, a bunch of EU rules in which we have no say. So Boris Johnson, and people have said, we want regulatory autonomy. The Conservative Manifesto, actually quite interestingly, said we want the freedom to diverge upwards. I think the problem is the EU isn't convinced that this government and all its successors will always only want want to diverge upwards and impose higher standards rather than look for opportunities to gain a bit of a competitive advantage. And they may as well be looking, the UK economy, we saw for the Chancellor's statement last week, taken one of the biggest batterings in the coronavirus crisis. How are we going to give our businesses a bit of competitive advantage back? So some people at least will be thinking, what can we do? Are there areas where we want to shovel in some subsidies? That's this big row about state aids and whether the EU gets a say if it thinks that's tilting this playing field so they think it's not fair competition.
And it's easy to forget, isn't it, that the year that we had in 2019 when it comes and was the attempt to either stop Brexit or to very much soften Brexit, but the softening of it never really came to fruition.
The people who didn't like the sort of Brexit we're going to end up had a choice. They had a choice. Did they try to say, actually, any sort of Brexit is really bad? So the sensible thing to do is to say, when people see what Brexit really looks like, they won't want it. So let's get a referendum. Let's actually say to people, are you really sure this was a big mistake, wasn't it? And hope we'd reverse and then just stay on as an EU member. Or did they devote their efforts to saying, well, actually, different way forward. Let's, lots of people voted for Brexit for lots of different reasons, and it wasn't clear what sort of Brexit you were voting for. That was actually, if you like, the genius of Dominic Cummings to allow people who just said, well, I just want out of things like ever closer union, a risk we might be forced into the euro, European defence or whatever, I just want out of all that. But actually, I just want to go back to that common market I voted for, and I'm perfectly happy with that. Versus those people who said, no, actually, we want to completely reorientate the British economy away from Europe, so we've got to not just leave the political institutions, we've got to leave the economic institutions as well. And Dominic Cummings' genius, if you like, was to recognise that if he didn't answer that question, it could assemble a winning coalition, which it did. But it's not clear which version of Brexit won. So if you add in all those 48% of Remainer votes, then actually majority for anything. That's what Parliament last year try and see in that Parliament, was there a majority for any sort of Brexit? And they could never quite get anything over the line that they'd all agree on. They could agree to stop no deal, but they couldn't agree on anything positive.
Jill, thank you. Good to talk to you as ever. Jill Russell, Senior Research Fellow at the UK in a Changing Europe. Ben Kentish was listening to that, LBC's Westminster correspondent. Before we come on to Labour's quandary on this, Peter Mandelson wrote an interesting piece in, I think, the FT this morning, didn't he, where he talked about the price that those of us who might have wished to stay in the EU will pay for trying to stop it, is that the hardest of Brexit is likely to be what we get in the end.
He did, Sheila, that's right. He said that effectively, rather than trying to argue for a softer Brexit, Peter Mandelson and others, and there are some who are saying this afternoon, hang on, you were, Lord Mandelson, you were one of the foremost members of this camp who were saying effectively, let's have a second referendum. Of course, the aim of that was really to try to stop Brexit at all. But Peter Mandelson absolutely saying in the FT that the Brexit deal that we get, if we do indeed get one, will be a pretty thin deal. And he says that is the price the rest of us in the pro-EU camp will have to pay for trying, in the years following 2016, to reverse the referendum decision rather than achieve the least damaging form of Brexit. Some reflections there with the benefit of hindsight from Peter Mandelson, who, as I say, was one of the leading people trying to campaign for a second.
Where can I wait? Over there? I want to pick up down there, so I wait there? Okay.
not. You know, there's people saying one of the Lacey Gray, who was very much a referendum movement, but will rejoin. Yeah, we'll focus our efforts on rejoining. There are even Nicholas wants to rejoin the EU. So there are people who say it's not over. It might be over for now, but you know, there will at some point, you know, I'm sure, be a rejoin campaign. Certainly for the short to medium term, the issue of whether we leave is obviously decided. The question is, do we get a deal? What does that deal look like? And what happens when it comes before Parliament, if indeed one is agreed?
Labour and Brexit, my goodness. Yes.
Well, it's another, after this week's vote, going to be a bind for Keir Starmer. Here is another one coming down the track, and we've got to keep saying it. If the deal is agreed, which is far from certain at this point, what on earth does Keir Starmer do? Do they support it? Do they vote against it? Do they abstain? They have, it seems, ruled out voting against it, and the row that's going on in the cabinet is about whether they support it. The leading Labour members voting seats like Lisa Nandy and Angela Rayner reportedly would like them to do, or do they abstain? Some of the more anti-Brexit, shall we say, some of the more metropolitan MPs like... Sorry, go on.
But I was going to say, but if I were Caroline Flint or Gloria De Piero, either of them, but they said very early to their party, wake up on the Brexit coffee, go with what the British people have voted for, or we lose big. And they were right, about the political loss.
Polling Brexit wasn't the whole picture, but it was an undeniable part of it. Position, it didn't end up agreeing with the party. Some were saying we've opposed Brexit, some were saying we've just accepted and helped support get it done. And it ended up nowhere, ended up in total no man's territory with an incredibly that frankly please Keir Starmer is incredibly, you can tell he never asks about Brexit in Prime Minister's questions. He never wants to talk about it. It's such a difficult issue for Labour, which is now a party who very, very tribal people like Lisa Nandy, the people you mentioned, Gloria De Piero, in those sort of typical hearts that where Brexit is popular and people voted for it. And then you've got the David Lammy, Emily Thornberry, North London, Jeremy Corbyn, of course. Typically, not Jeremy Corbyn, Lammy and Thornberry, much more pro-EU. So it's a real bind for Labour. I suspect they may well end up backing it, but what they do is going to infuriate people within the party.
But if really briefly, if Keir Starmer were to privately, in a sense, say to, if you get X, Y, we'll back it. That frees Boris Johnson off limit and not worry so much. I think of the deal he gets if he knows he's got parliamentary support.
It gives him far more scope, I think, to compromise on some of the issues that have been. If he knows it's going to get through with Labour votes, he doesn't have to worry quite so much about the backlash from his own party. That's absolutely right.
Okay, thank you. LBC's Westminster correspondent. Thanks again to Jill, who's I should say UK. We'll hear from Joe Platt for Lee in and I very much want to hear from you on this. 0345 606 the number to call. What should Labour do if Boris Johnson gets a deal? Should they vote for it or not? And where are you? When you hear people say there are no leavers and remainers anymore, is that true for you? 0345 606 17.
BC.
Cocktail for starters. A for our fast asleep. This movie. He's been. And the silence when everyone's gone.
This year it's a little like the 20 plus 5G with a magical £400 off. Online or in store. O2.
On select tariffs, £40 off expand airtime discount based on contract terms apply 5G where available. 2020. It's certainly not been an easy. As it draws to a close, let's try to make this best it can be. You can start by shutting sight. Visit cyberaware.gov.uk for some practical steps. steps to help protect you from crime, from creating stronger parts to updating. Enjoy a Christmas. Get secure online at cyberaware.gov.uk.
At Tesco, every little helps goes way beyond helping with your shopping. A little help.
Donating 2 million or supporting 350 young farmers to get started.
A little help is training community cooks with
It's 5,000 free forms from
Every little helps. Equivalent average monthly donations in 2019 and 2020 and 420 gram meal weight.
I spy something beginning with. Is it the new Nightshade Blue Volkswagen Tiguan online SUV with an elegant leather multifunction steering wheel, wireless app connect, lights, soft multicolour ambient, and a set of glossy 19-inch alloy wheels that we just. Nope. Did it have the 20 wheels?
the new Volkswagen Tiguan, full of reasons to get excited. Contact your local retailer today. But available as a discount.
Here's a great welcome to BritBox. Get % off first 3 months. From drama to documentaries, film to fantastic. Plus, stream exclusive series like BritBox Originals, Spitting Image. Oh, yes! Join BritBox today and save 50% for 3 months. Search BritBox sale. Offer ends 6th of December.
Are you the owner of or rare whiskies? Effortlessly at thelondon.com with hundreds of reviews on Google. We'll get no waiting for brokers or auctions. Guaranteed to be within terms, conditions, information on our website. One special bottle to an investment. Look no further. Winecellar.com.
Loads of most.
Actually, I'm okay. No hugging.
At Trusted PP, looking forward to getting back to normal. So let's all pull together to help stop the spread once and for all. In the meantime, with trustedpp.co.uk. And on Trust.
Fogarty on LBC 0345 60.
Coming very early. Listening to the program has answered my question. Is Brexit for is Europe for you that you would rely on? I will never forgive Cameron for having the referendum demonstrations which didn't opt for a soft Brexit. Remain and I will die on 560609 the number to call. Before I do that, to speak to you, I'm going to talk to Joe Platt now, former Lee, one of the Red Wall seats. 19. Joe Platt, thanks for coming back to talk to us.
Hi Sheila, no problem.
In a nutshell, describe your Brexit, not necessarily in your heart, but in your practical sort of voting experience as an MP. What was that trajectory?
Yes, it was really difficult. Obviously, I mean, I voted Remain back in 20, obviously representing having constituency, and things started to sour, I think, with regards to, you know, my place in Lee in 2018 was when our party was talking about second referendum, and my inbox was full to capacity, if you like, week in, week out, since, you know, from time to when the election was called. So it was a really, really difficult time, and I think myself and other people representing seats like mine, we tried to sort of steer our way. And it was trying to come to, you know, a negotiation really with regards to what we were voting. So obviously, you know, we had Theresa's deal. I didn't support any of them. It got to the point where, you know, we were trying to push the party to voting for a deal. And subsequently I did, but it wasn't enough. It was called and I lost my seat, along with a lot of others. What is the so-called wall? So yeah, so the Brexit story, lots to talk about, basically in a nutshell.
Do you think that, do you look back on it that you came to understand to do?
No, I mean, there was, I think, in our party talk back in 2018 was basically that we couldn't take if about that referendum. I think for that, I think people, we were knocking on doors, we were talking to lots of people, we were trying to steer a path to say that we needed a good deal at that point. So it was all about the customs union and still keeping close ties. I think that was the point we would go for a second that then the distrust started to happen, and basically the constituency polarised, if you like. It wasn't a deal anymore. It was a don't care, we just want Brexit. They'll have a no deal.
In a sense, I mean, in a sense, privately, I mean, because I'm a politician, I had a similar to you process of voting to remain, accepting in the end that actually what had to come had to come. But the reality is that by the end, as you were just describing there, by the end, as in the end of there was a sense that who said any Brexit, who had hardened Brexit must mean, it's because the other end of that spectrum, and I think in some cases not deliberately, deaf to them.
Absolutely. I wish you could see me nodding now. Yeah, absolutely. It was just, it was that polarisation basically. It's and it got wider, and then smaller voices in the middle, which included myself, were just being heard within that argument, and it difficult time heard. It didn't matter what I did or other MPs in similar situations. It didn't matter the way that we were voting, because the bigger thing it was, again, just that polarisation of that particular.
If you could advise Keir Starmer on what to do if a deal is between the EU and the UK, whether he should vote for it as reject in Parliament, I wonder what you'd say. And I know you're familiar with the news last night by JL Partners on those red wall seats. 2019, the Tories led by 40%, now Labour leads by 41%. Owning old, possibly with a sense Brexit is dealt with, possibly with a sense that the pandemic hasn't been handled well. People are thinking about those things. But what would you, and if Keir Starmer is serious, putting the Corbyn years and regaining government power, getting back into, what would you say? What would you do on this?
This isn't going to be one. I think we, from my perspective and from the Labour perspective, we're not expecting a great. It's not the other that we were promised. But to abstain on the issue, again, I don't think that would be the right way. I think there is merit on the basis. Go back to this old argument, because basically reignite that debate again. It would be, we want a no deal. And you're absolutely, people I think are fed, if you like, nuance with abstention on such a. I think and hope that we can negotiate. I think if we do become government, and then then we can basically. But at this time, I think it would be to vote for it, and that it isn't a good deal, and that hopefully that we can that and have a sensible conversation about it. But I think it's about getting it through.
Interesting to talk to you. Thanks very much, Joe Platt, former Labour MP for Conservative back in 2019 in the general election last year. Labour should do. You're a Labour voter, David. My pleasure.
I'm a Labour voter. I'm also a member of the Labour. Weigh in on what was happening. would like Labour to, first of all, be very careful washing their dirty in public and just, wait and see what we need to do when we go in negotiations. I mean, it might be no deal, in which all of this said anyway, but on actual fact of, I mean, I personally believe this thing continuing if at the end of the year I think negotiations will still carry on to do kind of deal. Now, I'm now talking and you're, but I was thinking to myself, Labour should look in ways. It might be that it's a bad deal, that it's more or less worth on to abstain, because there's obviously a plan on the part of the Conservatives to get in the blood of
deal. If reaching a deal that was tantamount to no deal, I'd be wrong, but solve the issue of the border and trade and an issue that solves that is that if there is a deals with competition between the EU, then that's a solid deal given where we're at. If you're going to get one, it gets. Yeah. So should Labour support that?
I would like to see the details and all the facts. Labour should take their time to read through that.
The bystander and again as a party.
Yes. Completely properly, but the negotiators equally that was the 27 members of the that just one but to the game using their sovereignty to make that decision.
Leave it there. Thanks very much, Steve, for your call.
Down from more than 600,000 7 days earlier. And Lidl are the latest retailers at millions of pounds in rates relief. £1 million
I got caught trying to go in. Wait there. All those on the main road, waiting to turn. I can't go in. What's happened is I've just there weren't any, so I'm just waiting to turn in, and there's loads. They're letting the buses through, obviously, but I can see that even the vans aren't getting in. I don't think I'm going to be with you.
To make, Kev.
Like whether to switch to E works one.
I mean, the unlimited data's a must-have. And I get to watch Apple TV Plus when it's time to unwind.
I bet you love bopping along to Apple Music. Oh yeah? Like this, you mean?
Not
E's business full works plan for iPhone or get plan and
T's and C's apply. Check coverage at e.co.uk/coverage. Experience may vary by location.
I'm Jo Brand. As a crisis supporter, I've learned that Christmas is one of the hardest times to be homeless. And this year, things are even tougher. Christmas, you can give someone who's homeless the support they need. Crisis are providing food, advice and access to a place to stay, plus long-term help. Please donate today and give someone a Christmas for £28.22. Go to crisis.org.uk. Thank you.
Many people struggle with loose and missing teeth. Often their dentist told them nothing can be done. Let the TDC team restore your teeth, your smile and your confidence with our award-winning Smile in a Day dental implant treatment. Book your session today. Visit smileinaday.co.uk.
With many employees about returning to work, progress are installing dividing screens and defense. These award shields can be simply installed to any when you and your staff to business in a safer work environment. They provide essential protection for offices, receptions, restaurants, major retailers and the NHS. Available now. Defence.co. Not just another Fogarty on LBC. Call 0344 60973.
Now, before I get back to your calls, let's talk about this business high individuals to travel without quarantining, and the rest of us hope along not being able. Yesterday, the Transport Secretary chaps took to Twitter, announced that from Saturday, 5th of December, tomorrow, so-called high-value business travellers will no longer need to self-isolate. Now, there's been some confusion today. High-value business travellers actually amount to what makes them high-value business travellers. The business secretary tried to explain it to LBC this morning, saying businesses qualify if they do deals of over.
This is about the value of business, rather about the individual. So, as I said, investment of £100 million. But just to be clear,
£100,000, isn't it?
No, million.
£100 million.
Yes.
I have to put it to you, I think you're misinformed. We are hearing it's £100,000, £100 million. Which is it, Secretary of State? You're saying 100 million.
Yes.
We're saying 100,000. Order or investment.
Yeah. Well, as I said, 50 or more, and bringing in investment. Yes.
I love the way you said yes. It was terribly royal. Yes. Well, it wasn't Nick's fault. The two government departments were saying different things on this. We've been there before. Matthew, LBC senior reporter. What's going on, Matthew? Yes.
Well, look, Sheila, the government hasn't done an invitation for competence any favours this morning. Extraordinary mix-up between two government departments. We should just put it right on record immediately. To be fair to the business secretary, he was exactly right. It was £100 million, but it took us several hours of phoning around to come to that conclusion. And within the last hours, a rather sheepish call from the department who admitted that they got their figures wrong. Now, this is inside a bit of a Westminster story. If you really boil it down, what that means, the government essentially announced to the nations their travel quarantine policy. They did it with a mathematical error of 1,000-fold, which is quite an extraordinary amount of investment or business deals, and £100 million investment deals is really quite something. I don't stress that for your listeners. Trauma was widely reported in other broadcasters' figure, and so we are left a slight for transport, and understandably those around Alex Sharma are particularly happy with that because it puts him in an extraordinary position this morning on national radio.
So what kind of are we talking about then if they're bringing in that kind of wealth to the country, and not just wealth but business, trade, employment, that kind of stuff? Who are we talking about? Many people.
So yes, exactly. I mean, 100 million is an awful lot of money. Well, yes. I mean, they certainly won't be flat. Clearly, when we saw the 100, that didn't quite
because £100,000 in business really isn't a great deal of money. From the Transport's briefing yesterday, which we must assume is correct apart from that extraordinary miscalculation of 100,000 to 100 million, what they told us asked was that the exemption facilitates three different types of what they describe as executives of firms who want to visit to do activities which the Department for Transport says will create and preserve UK jobs. Now, information yet on how you measure that. Are we supposed to know whether a particular safe or preserve 50 jobs? Of people that it will that under this exemption are UK-based for business and want to activity on their return to the country, which again will create or preserve 50 jobs. And then, and this is where it got foreign-based executives or their representatives who want to make funds in the UK or place a collar, which of this with the mix-up of 1,000 between 100,000 and 100 million. Still some questions as far as I can see how you actually justify that, which we're told made clearer possibly today, but before this policy comes into force tomorrow morning. But as I say, the reputation for not exactly reinforced by this saga over the last 12 hours or so, Sheila.
Rather better. Thanks, Matthew. Matthew Thomas, BBC's senior editor. Before I speak to, is it, I'm afraid I can't read that word. Is it Ollie or Quill? I'm so sorry. Hello? Ollie?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, it looks like Quill from... Anyway, so Brexit is reached.
Well, to be honest, it's kind of what all these going to be better. To be honest, with the late is the best deal possible. Even if it's a deal, that's probably the best thing they're going to have to go for. So I'd probably vote in favour of it.
Simply to bring an end to it all. In data, bring an end to it all, but to bring an end to the whole Brexit saga.
Yeah, because I mean, to be honest, I think you're probably the same. A lot of your listeners are probably the same. I think most people are just kind of sick of it now and want it over and done. And to be honest, my main view on it is where are we with it? Are we now better as a place where we're still in the EU? Have all the promises of the Brexit campaign has been? I mean, I certainly don't think they have. And to be honest,
they haven't, but they argued that it's too early for them to have been.
Yeah, but I mean, to be honest, there's clear signs that things are to be better. At the moment, the only sort of things they've gotten out of negotiations is, for example, with the deal we've just got with Switzerland and North Macedonia, their contracts are exactly the same. Mm. So we spent all this money on talks and, funding to get businesses ready and stuff when we're in exactly the same we were before, but we spent a load of unnecessary.
So do you, even if you were a vote, then the deal is great. You're not going to celebrate it.
No,
and many in the Parliamentary Labour Party won't be celebrating it either. That's the difficulty for them as a party, isn't it? They have hard evidence of the damage it did them electorally, sitting on their hands about this. I can't. Go on. I can't see how they can sit on their hands again on this. I just can't.
No, it's just you've got to do. I think the main. In the handful of times I've voted, I only turned 18 6 years ago, and the handful of times I've voted, I've voted Labour team, but it does get quite frustrating as the person who sort of stays corner quite often when they sit on, as you said, sit on their hands with things like this.
But they would say, we're not sitting on our hands, we are not a government that's doing this to the British economy. In all conscience, we can't. We're not the government. It's their project, not ours. See you at the general election for another discussion about whether us or them. I mean, that's the abstention argument, isn't it? Or the rejection argument.
And I guess if they're saying to then I can kind of see why they've done it. But, you know, at the end of the day, sadly, it is what it is, and we've got to get on with it and do it. Not to the will of a lot of people. I mean, evidently, for the majority, I'm not sure how much of a majority they still have after all of it. Yeah, you just got to get on.
Thanks, Ollie, from Cambridgeshire. Thank you. It's 1:45.
Weekends at LBC with David Lammy.
You will have heard over many months the outrage of so many people at the Whitbread scandal. So if you arrived in the UK, let's say 5, 6, you've studied here, but you found yourself in trouble, should you be deported? If you impoverish a community, by necessity, it might mean that people end up committing crime.
David Lammy, Saturday afternoons from 4. LBC.
Time is running out, and if you're a small business owner, work to do. On the 21, the Brexit transition period will have ended, and new business rules begin. You may need to change rate, and getting ready could take longer than you think. There'll be changes to exports, imports, and hiring. And if you move goods into, out of, or through Northern Ireland, check what you need to do to prepare. So whether you own a shop or a garage, there's now. Go to gov.uk/transition.
At Morrison's, there's selected tubs of chocolate or any two for £7. Choose from Celebrations, Heroes, Quality Street, and Morrison's, made from Christmas special. Majority stores subject to availability. Excludes online. 600 to 650 grams, £3.99 each. Offer ends 6th of December 2020. Every day, thousands of new ideas are born in homes across the country. Look, there's one now. Once these ideas reach maturity, they live a life fraught with risk and uncertainty. Now more than ever, new ideas are becoming endangered. With your help, we can change this. I'm Karen Brady. Together with Tide, we've launched the Tide charity to offer grants of £1,000 for small businesses that need it most.
For information on how to preserve our nation's future or to see if you qualify, visit tidecharity.co.uk.
Andre Rieu presents Jolly Holiday, live from Maastricht. The brand new album by the King of the Waltz. Music to warm your heart and make you dance. A magical celebration of Christmas and romance, featuring an exclusive new behind-the-scenes DVD. Make your Christmas special. Andre Rieu, Jolly Holiday, out now.
Who's this cute little fella? Oh, it's Percy Pig. Actually, it's 1 kilo of Percy Pigs, now only £12. All snuggled into an embossed retro glass jar and reusable, so you can pop in some plants when he's gone. This is not just a sweetie jar, this is an M&S Percy Pig sweetie jar. Selected stores only, T&C supply.
We interrupt this program with some breaking news. Anna?
Damn it, I've never seen anything on this scale before. Friday's £175 million Euro Millions jackpot is the biggest ever, and it's towering over us.
A whopping £175 million jackpot. That's dream come true money. Euro Millions from the National Lottery. Play online or on the app. Estimated jackpot. Account terms, rules and procedures apply. Players must be 16 or older.
What am I looking forward to most?
The biggest hugs from my nan.
Finally being able to burst my social bubble.
At Trusted PPE, we're looking forward to getting back to normal as much as you are. So let's all pull to help stop the spread once and for all. In the meantime, stay safe. TrustedPPE.co.uk. Rated on Trustpilot. Right now at your local co-op, get 2 packs of our irresistible hand-cut crisps for just £2 with flavours like pigs and kits. They're perfect in a Christmas film. Trying to watch a Christmas film. Co-op is what we do. Subject to availability. See parties. 29th of December 2020. £144 on the...
Yeah. No, not yet. Yeah, I know. This will be the last day we do this, John. I won't be. Not possible, you know. But I'll ring you when I'm coming through. Yeah. Bye bye.
Do you Or do you still think we should be fighting against Brexit? 3456060 This says the debate about whether we should leave is long over. However, the government is still very much accountable for the promises they made. The relationship that we have with the EU and the rest of the world is still up for debate. I don't think that falls under party political or Brexit lines. The Prime Minister has an 80-seat majority, so he shouldn't need Labour in order to pass a bill. Labour should continue to hold the government to account and put forward their vision for the country. And John in Hawley says, all these conversations about Brexit would be so much easier if the Leave side hadn't lied so much about the benefits of leaving. Firstly, Brexit might not be happening at all, but if it were, Labour would know it was the real will of people rather than it being from votes based on fairy tales. At some point, the real cost of Brexit will become clear as and Johnson will have to fess up that he made the country, says John. Stephen in Wales. Aberdoulis, is that right, Stephen?
Well, some people say Aberdoulis and some people say Aberdoulis. Say Aberdoulis. So
I'll go Aberdoulis in that case.
Yes, that's easy. Yes, I mean, I'm a passionate Remainer. Have an expression in Wales that you can the girl out the valley, but not the out the girl. And taken out of Europe, you can't take Europe out of me. I've got family in Italy and friends in France, worked in Europe and worked in Paris, and it's my life. I'm at home watching the television in French, and it's my life. You'll never get those opportunities I've had from me. And
but does Brexit do that? Does Brexit?
It definitely does. I mean, I'm hoping to get family and friends and coming. And it's certainly not made it easy at all. And I wanted to go back to France to live when I was there, which is very shortly, and that's never going to happen now.
Why?
Well, simply because I simply can't afford to do my health insurance policies and things like that. Certainly my status isn't welcome. And you need to benefits of Europe, and you have to be a rich person.
Do you? Rich people voted for it.
Exactly.
Well, you say exactly. Maybe they would say something about the way it was being used did not deliver for us.
Well, I think something. Was said that was so wrong and so totally wrong, patently wrong.
So, do you believe that any of the failings and the lack constituencies saw, and it wasn't only poorer constituencies but many did. Do you think that what they were kicking was the wrong thing? That it was the government of the day, whichever that was, that they needed to kick, not our membership of the EU?
Well, yes, definitely. That was my thoughts all along, and and it's still happening. That the EU, I'm feeling crazy about how wonderful Britain is. We're a good country, of course we are. But, one of the things is that it's always the EU that's doing us down, and not owning up to our own problems. We can perpetuate it by the governments of today.
Well, thank you for your call, Stephen. And let's hear from Julie in Buckhurst Hill. Hello, Julie.
Oh, hi, yeah.
How do you say?
Oh.
Do we have you on? Yeah. Hi.
Yes, you do, so, yeah.
Okay. So on Labour, what do you think they should do?
I think that they need.
Hello, mate. I can't get in the gate, so do you want to... Oh, wait a minute. The gate's moving. Stay on the phone. Okay, walk to where I dropped. Hello.
All the complications.
Yeah, we can't do this anymore, John. It just doesn't work.
Really, whatever they did. I paid up Labour member or anything, but I would just go with whatever they did.
An awful lot of
Well, there's buttons at the road. I mean, it does say no entry between 2 and 3, I think.
Not entirely. I mean, it's been.
Well, because that's the agreement that they. Well, because that's the agreement that they have with the local authority, which is no good. You know, I can't take an hour and a quarter out of the day. I can take half an hour. You know, but to take an hour and a quarter out, I mean, it's ridiculous.
You don't have to take an hour and a quarter.
Well, that's what's happened on this occasion, isn't it? I left at 2, and by the time we get...
leave at 2:30.
Well, I suppose so, but it doesn't mean... I mean, there are still cars waiting to get in now, if you look. There. You see, I was parked over there. But I think we should get the van, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, as it seems, I thought it was just going to be a quick project, you know. I thought it would be just twice a week, and you know, didn't you?
No, I have to go Tuesdays and Fridays.
So now they're telling us that you've got to go to school now, yeah? Right. No, fair enough. All right, well, for you next week. I'll let Mum know tonight. What is it half term next week?
No, next week it's Parents' Day and Public Holiday, I think. I don't know.
But you're definitely not going next week then?
No, next week there's no school.
There's no school at all?
No.
Ah, okay. You can take your mask off if you want.
Opposition there, wasn't it? Let's go.
No, I think they were. I think the lady on the last call left by saying, you know, she blames the Tories. I blame one person for all of this. One person.
David Cameron.
Not Cameron.
No.
Who are you speaking to?
My friends. Imagine playing Roblox.
Basically, I think has caused all the problem to the Labour Party.
Well, I think he was confused. Yeah, I hear you, but he wasn't confused, was he? He was fancy Nick Wimbledon Johnson. He was a president masquerading as somebody who was confused. Seems to me. Thank you for all of those calls. Keep them coming actually on the question. European Union, it's actually about to be, well, it is over effectively, isn't it? The transition period that we're in soon to end. There's talks ongoing. We'll get views from Ireland in a moment. I'll hear from Neil Richmond, the member of the Irish Parliament, the TD for Dublin, Rathdown, and your calls on whether you think it is over, the argument is over about our membership of the European Union, or for you, something you will still 5 6060 973.
On your radio, on Global Player, and LBC. Leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.
From Global's newsroom at 2 o'clock, Downing Street has declined to confirm whether Brexit trade talks will continue into the weekend. Number 10 has warned the intensive discussions between UK and EU negotiators in London have reached a very difficult point. The two sides are trying to find compromises on fishing rights and competition rules. President of the European Council, Charles Michel, has been speaking to reporters in Brussels.
Ciao, ciao.
For the European Union, the question of the level playing field is key and is really essential to make sure that what we put on the table at the end of the negotiation will be accepted by all member states.
The UK's coronavirus R number has fallen to between 0.8 and 1 from between 0.9 and 1. It represents the number of people that one infected person will pass the virus on to on average. Separate estimates from the Office for National Statistics suggest the number of new infections in England is continuing to fall. Pubs, bars and restaurants in Wales will be banned from selling. Hospitality venues will also have to close by 6 p.m. These customers at a pub in Monmouth say some people will be travelling Snow has been causing travel problems across parts of the UK. Some trains have been cancelled in South where there have been also weather warnings and South East. And the former Arsenal and Manchester City midfielder Vieira has been of Nice. The club have lost their last 5 games and sit 11th in the country top flight. In the city, a short £65.44 buys $1.34 at €1.10. And the weather chilly with heavy rain and sleet affecting most of us. Some southern areas turning a bit brighter. A high of 8 Celsius. From Global's newsroom, I'm Thomas Wallace.
This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation with Sheila Fogarty.
Next week it's all thunder.
Yeah, well, it looks like quite bad tonight. Look at all these big black clouds up there. I mean, there's blue sky there. It's quite nice, but right above us, big black clouds. It's been trying to rain all day, you know.
Brexit trade in London. Time running out though to achieve a deal. You heard in the news bulletin there some detail. One senior UK government source says the prospects of a breakthrough were receding and accused the EU of making 11th hour demands. France was being made out to be the bad cop, as is often the case in these situations. But a Brussels source kicked back and said that an EU negotiator, Michel Barnier, called today an important day. Both sides have to agree and ratify any deal by the 31st of December when the current rules, which govern EU-UK trade, come to an end. And if they don't, they'll do business on World Trade Organization rules, which I know for many of you is of no consequence whatsoever, or you think it isn't. That means the introduction of tariffs or taxes on imports. Let's get a view from Ireland on this, from Neil Richmond, Dublin Rathdown TD for the party Fine Gael. Good afternoon to you. First things first, your tweet made me smile. Was it last night or this morning? I can't remember. In response to Gavin Williamson saying that Britain was better than everywhere else. Our lads, we can hear you. It was very funny.
Yeah, it certainly sums up, I suppose, the last few years. I think at times certainly we forget that we speak pretty good English, and we follow British media, we read your papers assiduously.
You owe me €7.
What the ministers are.
Why?
Because of the
Britain's a
Patreon.
great country. The UK is a brilliant neighbour. Come on now. I think the days of saying we're better. My dad's bigger than your dad, to be honest.
We'll leave that one to one side. I mean, as much as anything, the timing of it, whatever he meant by it, however serious or not he was about it, the timing of it wasn't great, was it, given these talks?
And the dishwasher.
What's your sense about these
And the dishwasher.
last 48 hours?
Oh my god. How much is the dishwasher?
€4.
Well, actually, no, because this is the first
So
time.
€10 for cash, yeah?
A lot of people, particularly in the UK, equate the is internal.
You want to come in and get it?
Such as the
I'll
common
come in
fisheries
later.
policy or the annual budget. Yes, they of course go to the last minute and then they roll over, but no one's leaving the union. Let's be quite clear, on the 31st of December, the UK transition period ends and the UK is out. It's out already, but all the terms come into effect. We had a very clear timetable about what should be done at what stage. It was regrettable the British government didn't seek an extension in July. It was always ambitious that we would negotiate some sort of deal in these 11 months, but realistically the deal should have been done and put through the ratification process a couple of months ago, if not a couple of weeks ago, and we're now less than a month to the end of the transition period. Christmas is coming. The European Parliament is due to sit on the 28th of December to try and get this ratified, and really this weekend it's time for the British government to make a decision. If they want a deal, the deal's on the table, the terms are quite clear.
And what will be the on-the-ground implications and reactions, I suppose, if there is no deal, for Ireland in particular?
Are they still doing Brexit?
Well, certainly within the European Union, of all countries that would suffer the most in a no-deal scenario,
What's there still to do?
We'll struggle. We've taken many measures.
Agree the terms of the
in terms
exit.
of expanding our direct links to the continent for shipping and for exports.
What terms we're going to be trading with the EU
and the impact on the ground
vice versa.
will be far more reaching in the UK. Our last two budgets here in Ireland were scoped on the basis that we were potentially looking at a no-deal basis. The European Commission presented no-deal notices over 18 months ago. To be quite frank,
those people who enjoy a McDonald's hamburger will find the beef that goes into that hamburger 40% more expensive in the UK on the 2nd of December or 2nd of January. That's in nobody's interest. It's in everybody's interest to get some sort of a deal. No such thing as a good Brexit for anyone. It is a damage limitation exercise, but I really think it's time that people put the rhetoric down, try to stop blaming everything on France and be realistic.
But you say there's no such thing as a good Brexit for anyone. From the point of view of the British government, as it's configured at the moment anyway, a good Brexit is the Brexit that gives the British nation the freedom, the sovereignty might be the word that they would use, to argue the toss over these things, something it didn't really have in the same way before. That's to them a good Brexit, isn't it?
Well, that's a perception of it, but I think it's a completely misguided one. At the end of the day, if we go back to before the referendum, Boris Johnson himself said that no one was talking about leaving the single market. And here we are, in the last month of transition period on the precipice of either a no-deal Brexit, or even if we do get a deal, it will be extremely narrow. And people need to realise that you can talk about sovereignty and talk about independence and all these things, but 27 member states in the EU, we are independent, we are sovereign, particularly a country like Ireland. We know a bit about independence. We're about to celebrate the centenary of our independence.
Would you like to compare to a light the vehicle?
I would like not.
Through a referendum.
I will leave you in the vehicle then.
No.
The base thing here is that the EU is the world's largest.
My vehicle.
We're not seeking to punish the UK. We want to have a good future relationship, and we don't want to get drawn into somewhere the hot air talk. But we have a situation that any country that wants a trade deal with the EU, any third-party country, there are some basic red lines. Key above that is the level playing field. There can be an agreement on fisheries that suits everyone, but really at this stage, the time for talking's over.
Please.
I don't care whether you jump out or not, my little squeaky kitty.
My tooth!
What's happened to your tooth? Come on. Otherwise I will start again.
It's not just one thing, it's many things. If you look at, for example, the proposals that have been